Hola a todos y buenas tardes y willkommen. Tere mas, bienvenue. Las cavo próximo, calo irritale. Benvingut, benvinga, wanying, alambik, baruchaba, and hoş geldiniz. So I would like to welcome everyone from different languages, and I could not cover all. And so thank you very much for being here. I hope you had a great first day and the lunch. So bienvenidos a todos. Thank you very much for coming at Toledo, the MSCA Conferencia de Presidencia de España, MSCA Diverse Research Careers to Tackle Global Challenges. It's with great pleasure that I welcome you all to warm Spain, the beautiful city Toledo, and the workshop of Intersectorial Dimensions of the MSCA. ¿Cómo estáis? Bien? Perfecto. So, I define MSCA, Marie Curie Association, as a family, and a family of a multicultural community, but the grand family is the MSCA action itself. The action brings researchers and institutions, private and not, starting from the Europe to other continents, valuing the diversity and equity around the world together under a single umbrella, aiming to develop research and innovation for healthy and wealthy society now and in future. So welcome once more, and let's get to know each other. And just before that, please be with us, share your thoughts and comments and questions when the time arrives, and please put your phones on the silent flight mode because we will get high and the technicians might complain about this. So, and then I'm Murat Güneş. I'm the chair of Bridging Science and Business Working Group of the Marie Curie Association and researcher at Institute of Microelectronics Barcelona in Spain. So today we have privilege hosting a distinguished speakers who bring a wealth of expertise and intersections of academia and public administration. I would like to welcome to Anouk Lafortune, DG EIC MSCA Unit European Commission, Jesús Rojo, Fundación para el Conocimiento Madrid Place D, Spain, Eduardo Oliver, Center for Biological Research, CIB C6 Spain, and Ciencia el Parlamento, and Anna Berti Sumon, Joint Research Center, European Commission, Italy. So we have also a reporter. I would like to mention Christian Canal, welcome. Deputy Head of International Research Cooperation, Department of the Estonian Research Council. So together we are going to provide an in-depth description of how to maximize the public administration in MSCA initiatives, fostering productive partnership and promote win-to-win for all parties. So, I would like to introduce the first speaker, Anouk Lafortune. The European Commission's policy officer is involved in MSCA unit focusing on the postdoctoral fellowship action and other horizontal topics related to the program objectives, including academia, business cooperation, research careers, and assessment. Lafortune holds a doctoral degree in social sciences. Welcome, dear Anouk.
Thank you.
So, you are an accomplished policy officer with years of experience in academia and non-academic organizations, MSCA. So, you witnessed and also facilitated collaboration between academia, industry, and of course, the public administrations. So, you have a deep understanding of the synergies that can be achieved through such partnership, and can provide practical advice how to navigate the complex dynamics between these stakeholders. So my question is, can you please give us short information about, first to know, who is MSCA and the intersectoral participation in MSCA action focusing on the mechanisms for non-academic sectors and public administration projects. Stage is yours, please.
Thank you, Murat. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, so I wanted to start with a couple of figures. You'll hear, I think, a lot more figures in the next presentations. And actually, there has been it's been mentioned this morning by my head of unit, Claire. So a bit of a spoiler this morning, but yes, one of the key figures that we have is that indeed public administrations, public bodies only represented 1% of participation in MSCA under Horizon 2020. So there are possibilities to participate, but the participation under age 2020 of public bodies was quite low. We can compare it with, this morning we compared it with the Age 2020 program where you have about 5%, public bodies represent 5% of participation. You can also compare it to the wider non-academic sector. In MSCA, we are, non-academic sector represents 30% of participation, to including over 4,800 companies, but only 1% of public bodies. You can also compare this 1% to the share of researchers that end up working in academia. And actually, you see that it's a much larger share of our former fellows. Depending on the surveys that we do, in the MCA 2020 survey, it was 6%. In our end of fellowships questionnaires, it's more closer to 4%. But you see that we have many more fellows that end up working in the public sector, but that do not acquire directly the experience in public bodies via MSCA projects, or only a minority of them, the 1% participation. So why is it important to MSCA? For us as a program, we have, and this was again mentioned this morning, but we really have this dual objectives of supporting excellent science in all fields of research, a bottom-up program, but also the second objective is to support the training, skill development, and career development of those that are conducting that research, of the researchers themselves at all stages of their career. And for that, another core word for the MSCA is one of the ways we do this is through mobility, is by sending researchers to different institution organizations internationally, but also exposure to other sectors, and that includes public administration, especially if the research has policy implications. And so one of our objectives through MSCA is to strengthen those collaborations beyond academia with other sectors within our projects, and set this as an example for training programs and for research programs in Europe and beyond. Now, how we do this in MSCA, we have our core 5 main actions. I won't go into details. I think we know them well. I'll focus particularly on 4: doctoral networks, postdoctoral fellowships, the staff exchange action, and the co-fund action as well. And as part of those 4 actions, there are different ways for public administrations to participate. It will vary, the type of participation, the type of activities, of hosting arrangements they can have for fellows can vary, does vary from one action to the other, but there are plenty of opportunities, just like any other organizations from any sectors, whether academic or non-academic. So the next slide summarizes a little bit the opportunities that exist under the different actions. And one of the opportunities, the first one, is that obviously they can recruit a fellow under MSCA project. So they can act as a beneficiary that receives direct funding and sign the grant agreement and recruit a fellow for a postdoc fellowship, or, for instance, as part of an industrial doctorate where they get a fellow for 50% of the PhD. That's an option. Now, that's not necessarily, this is open, beneficiary is open to all sectors. There's a restriction in terms of a geographical restriction, so it can only be organizations from EU member states or Horizon associated countries, but it is open for public administrations. Now, we don't see that often, and that might be that there are, that the incentive for being a beneficiary, like receiving direct funding, versus also the cost of it, there are more administrative burdens, etc., for managing the grant, managing the funding, may not be what suits the best a public administration. But there are other opportunities, like being, the second option is to be a third country a fellowship host, so hosting, for example, outgoing phases of a postdoc fellowship. That's also an option, and that would be open for public administrations from third countries, for example. Well, for third countries only. And that is also open to all sectors, so including public administration. Another option, which is probably the most widely available for public administrations, are to be secondment hosts. So to host researchers for a length of time as part of secondments in their doctoral program, in their postdoc program, or also as part of staff exchanges. And that's available in all the different actions with slightly different conditions depending on the action. And finally, we were talking about this morning, but there is also a novelty under Horizon Europe, which is the non-academic placement host under the postdoctoral fellowship. And this is the new incentive that we have to encourage non-academic participation in postdoctoral fellowship, because it is the action where we see the least non-academic participation. We used to have the incentive of the Society and Enterprise panel that was mentioned this morning. We changed this in Horizon Europe for this opportunity of a placement host. And possibly for public administrations, for example, an advantage of the placement host is that you are an associated partner. So you have less administrative burden. You don't get direct funding, which might be an incentive for businesses, for SMEs, more than for public administration. And so it's rather than the Society and Enterprise panel, where you get a fellow for 2 years, yes, but you have to deal with the management of the grant, the reporting to the European Commission, etc., etc. That is not something that many public administrations are familiar with, and is an extra burden for them as well. So you have those different, this new incentive under postdoc fellowships that is different from what we had before, but that might be particularly of interest for public administrations. Now, I think one of the challenges that we have is we do have these flexible opportunities under MSCA, but there's maybe a lack of visibility. But also one of the challenges, and that was again mentioned this morning, is to find each other. When you're a policymaker, when you're a researcher, working in a university, working in a public administration, where do you meet? Where do you meet to come together to prepare a proposal for MSCA? And for this, we've developed a variety of tools. We have the MSCA matchmaking platform by MSCA Net. We also have tried to organize, notably in collaboration with the JRC, so with Lorenzo, our keynote speaker from this morning, in a matchmaking event where researchers and policymakers can meet to maybe find a match for preparing a proposal. So here are just this slide was just a little food for thoughts in case to show you a bit of the options that there are. But there is obviously more that we can do as part of the program, and that's also why we're here today, is to listen to new ideas and new thoughts. So thank you very much, and thank you for listening.
So, thank you very much, Anuk. It was a very interesting talk you gave, and it is clearly seen that the public body's participation to the MSCA actions is just 1%, which is quite low. And we also know the importance that, excellence to the science from bottom up, that MSCA take the actions. And also MSCA is now already has started acting, providing these tools like matching. So thank you very much once more. And state-of-the-art participation of non-academic sector, I would like to introduce the next speaker, Jesus Rojo. Jesus, the head of the European Program Unit at Foundation Madrid Plus D, and he has been involved in various international projects and initiatives, including the Enterprise Europe Network Spain, and serves as national contact point for Spain entities and applicants of the MSCA calls. Welcome, Jesus. So you have been involved in several international projects, initiatives from different fields such as space, environment, security, regional integrations, international cooperations, like quite impressive CVs. And you have also served as an NCP that promotes the MSCA actions in Spain. So you have years of experience of these projects and collaborations, EU-funded projects, facilitating collaborations as well. So I would like to ask you, who is the non-academic sector we are talking about? So it would be great to talk about this. So the stage is yours.
And I will go here because I can move my head. Thank you for the introduction. I will explain, the first topic is what is the non-academic sector. So in order to analyze and understand the approach or the activities or the needs of the non-academic sector, we need to define what is the non-academic sector. We can start with the non-academic sector is any entity that is not academic. But this definition is not useful at all for us. So we need to understand what is inside this non-academic sector. So, who is the non-academic sector? According to the European Commission definition, it could be any institution and any entity that lies under these three categories. The European Commission categorizes any participant in any EU program under PRC, private for-profit, excluding education and organizations, POB, public bodies, that is very related with public administration. We will see where is the public administration inside the non-academic sector, and also we have other entities. So under these three definitions, there is a universe of entities with different nature, scopes, size, and field of action. But in our MSCA Net project, we try to analyze and categorize the non-academic sector, and we will check what kind of entities and what kind of categories we can split the non-academic sector. So, according our report and our analysis, we try to categorize in different groups. So the non-academic sector is a wide variety of entities, and we can find the first element is the companies. So inside companies, there is another universe. We have startups that comes from people, entrepreneurs, that they have an idea and they want to create a company. We have a spin-off from universities and research centers that they use the research result in order to create a company and exploit these results. But also we have SMEs, small and medium enterprises, but also we have scale-ups. Scale-ups are companies that they have the size enough to grow internationally. But also we have another entity, is corporations. We have big companies, but also mid-caps. We have another type of entity, is the public administration. And inside the public administration, we have another universe of entities. As you can see in my slide, we have city councils, we have regional national ministries, we have regional and national agencies, law enforcement authorities, and other public entities. And we will take into details later on. So it's important to understand what it means public administration and what kind of entities are part of this category. We have also hospitals, we have international organizations, we have museums, non-governmental organizations, and other entities. Inside other entities, there is another universe of pieces of this non-academic sector. We can find Chamber of Commerce, foundations, communication agency, researchers association. So the non-academic sector is so complicated, and we need to understand them in order to involve them in the MSCA. Anouk present the different opportunities inside the program, and we need to understand their needs and the opportunities that the program are offering to these kind of entities. The non-academic sector during Horizon 2020 participate very actively because it's an add value to the project, but also because it's compulsory in many of the actions. We have the industrial doctorate. It's compulsory to have non-academic sector enterprises in order to prepare and train the new generation of predoctoral researchers in the industry. But also we have RISE, now we have staff exchange. It's the collaboration between academia and the non-academic sector in order to prepare research and innovation projects. If you see the data, also COFAN and the NIGHT projects is very active and very attractive for the non-academic sector. So the non-academic sector reached around 50% of the participation in the program. But we have another action, the individual fellowship in Horizon 2020, that it was not very popular for a non-academic sector. And in 2016, the Commission created the Society and Enterprise panel. This panel was focused only for the non-academic sector. So you can see the percent of participation of non-academic entities increased in 2016, and we reached around 4% of participation. But this is the non-academic sector, and we can find hospitals, we can find museums, we have companies, public administration. But now let's take a look for the public administration. Lorenzo explained in the keynote speech, the public administration is only participating around 6% in the Marie Curie project. And you can see here that the percent are really low in ITN, the actual doctoral networks. In IF and RISE is only between 1% and 2%, and this is really low. So there is a space for improvement and for new action that maybe we can discuss today. And also, COFAN is a program very attractive for public administration. And finally, the NIGHT. The NIGHT is a European project focused on science communication, put together researchers, research, and citizens. And this is a clear program that attracts public administration because they are really focused on put together citizens and research. So the next topic is about the definition of the public administration. It's so complicated to give you a definition. For many decades, researchers and scientists, they were talking about the definition of public administration. We can find some definitions that they are related with policy making. So those institutions that they are in charge of organize and create the policies in different fields. But also there are another line that they define the public administration, those entities who implement or do managerial or governmental activities. So in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, public administration is any public entity that covers, for example, transportation, housing, park and recreation, security, emergency management, disaster response. So this gives us an idea that what is inside the public administration. And maybe we can separate those who are doing policy making and those who are implementing actions and activities and services for the citizens. So if we take a look at this brainstorming, in public administration, we can find city councils, regional and national ministries, health authorities, first response emergency departments, housing and urban agencies, state meteorological agencies, space national agencies, river bases, chamber of commerce. So it's very varied, and it's important to understand their needs. These categories that I include, they were taken from Horizon 2020 participation. So this is real public administration participating in the project. And after this, we can discuss if we can involve some of them or not in Marie Curie, what are the benefits or the action that we need to improve to attract them to Marie Curie projects. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jesus. It was very impressive that you categorized the non-academic factor, and we have seen that there is a huge world under public administration. Yes. And we have seen the benefits, as you mentioned, like housing, transportation, which directly benefits to the society, actually, right? So I think it would be great to organize another event just for public administration to know, like, for them better than for them to be participating into the MSCA actions. So thank you very much once more. And the next speaker is Eduardo Oliver. Welcome, Eduardo, once more. Eduardo is a biomedical scientist from Spain. He is the president of Ciencia en el Parlamento, a citizen initiative promoting the use of scientific knowledge in policymaking process. With a PhD in pharmacology from University of Valencia and background in pulmonary vascular diseases, Oliver has published over 40 scientific publications. He holds both European and Spanish Young Investigator Award in pharmacology, and also founding member of the Society of Spanish Researchers in the United Kingdom, and the Network Spanish Researchers Abroad. So initiatives I see here that you are very much involved in public administration, non-academic sectors, and together with European-funded projects. So my question is, as a researcher who supports the integration of academia and the public administration, so you started with a program called Science in Parliament. Could you please elaborate on the history, purpose of the Ciencia en el Parlamento, and current activities such as the pairing done as part of Science Meets regions that you have initiated? So,
Sure.
the stage is yours.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Murad, for your question. Yeah, I'm going to tell you what is Ciencia en el Parlamento, or Science in Parliament in English. So we are an independent, non-profit grassroots association made up of researchers and science professionals, created in 2018. We are created with a vision of getting our country committed to knowledge and innovation as the engine of the society. Therefore, we have a mission that is making science and scientific knowledge available to public management. So, to summarize this, our main objective nowadays also is to try to promote the Spain to have a science for policy ecosystem. So going back to 2018, we born in a year that where Spain was not having an office for scientific advice. So our main objective was promoting this scientific advice mechanism to the Spanish legislative power. So we wanted an office for scientific and technological advice to be created in the Spanish Congress of the Deputies. So, and then we thought, okay, what can we do to promote this science for policy ecosystem in Spain, especially this office to be created? So this is about our history. Let me tell you a little bit how we born and where we end up now. So in January 2018, we began a Twitter campaign reflecting how could we approach science and scientific knowledge to policy making, because at that time, scientists and policymakers were not talking between them and were mostly, most of the time, fighting for more money and for different stuff. So we started with this campaign, and actually, suddenly we got a huge support. Especially, I have to mention the support of the private foundation CODEC and the public foundation FECYT, which give us the support to meet in less than a month the board and the president of the Congress of the Deputies. That happened in February 2018. Some months later, in November 2018, we released the first 2 days event to speak about 12 scientific topics in the Spanish Congress of Deputies. And after 2 general elections and a COVID pandemic, in 2021, the Parliament established the first Office for Legislative Scientific Advice in Spain, Oficina C. I will tell you a little bit more how we did it. So we thought how to approach science to public management. There are 3 ways if you look at other countries, how they do it. So first is to have an independent scientific advice body, which we didn't have at the time. Then regular meetings between policymakers and scientists, and also shadowing programs. We had experience in the UK, so we thought, okay, why don't we start by proposing a regular meeting? So that will be our, let's say, the first month for free, like Netflix does at the very beginning, not to convince you. So, okay, we are going to work like the Science Advice Office work normally. So we created a program to arrive to November 2018 to talk about 12 different topics that we got from a public call out of 130 proposals made by the people. And then, so we had to make these small reports to be able to give the evidence to the policymakers. So we selected 24 like scientific advisors like people that we were going to train out of 200 candidates. And then they interview more than 100 scientific experts about the different science topics, interview them, and create the reports that we'll be going to be presented in the 2 days event, right? So exactly the same way that the Scientific Advisory Office works nowadays in a parliament. Right, so we got to November, we have 2 days event. The first day was a public event with policymakers and experts debating about the topic. We managed to get to be trending topic and be online on YouTube. And the second day, it was a working day where policymakers, without phone, without internet, they will be able to ask even stupid questions that experts could answer. And they were very happy with this. Then, actually, the most important for us is that we got to have to reach a consensus between all the political parties at the time. We also get to know each other, to understand, to build trust, and also understand peculiarities of the different worlds. And also, we got a big support that was impossible to do without this support of more than 200 institutions and more than 3,000 citizens supporting our initiative. But what else we can do? The shadowing programs. So after many years, from 2018 to 2021, we thought, okay, it's time to do something else. And we knew that shadowing programs was something that other countries were doing very well. Also, Oficina C was starting a national shadowing program. So we said, okay, why don't we go to regional parliaments? And GRC has this program called Science Meets Regions to fund projects to close the gap between science and policy. So we apply and we got this funding, and we are nowadays running the first shadowing program in a region in Spain focused on green transition and sustainability. So we have selected 12 scientists working in different subjects of this big topic in Valencia region, and we have selected also 14 politicians. Yeah, we have couples and one quartet of politicians and scientists. They were really wanted to participate, so we did that. We have received 54 candidates, and we have selected 12 of them that have received 2 training sessions to train them how to communicate science to policy makers, how works the policy making process, also at the regional, at the council level, and the regional parliament, and so on. And the policy makers were selected from councils. We have mayors of different city councils in Valencia, and also we have regional parliamentarians. Then they are now, these days, doing the reciprocal exchange. So the scientist is going one day to follow up all the work, all the normal day of the politician, and the politician will visit the work of the scientists, and they will learn each other how their rules, their rhythm, their languages, their needs, right? And this is so important to break barriers and well, try to know better each other. So yeah, this is what we are doing. And to finish, what else can we do? Very quickly, we do reports. We have a study of the 23 different offices for scientific advice that are running in different countries. We are doing different regional meetings in different cities, to meet, to put together scientists and policymakers to debate about different subjects and topics. Also, we try to engage with all political parties. And I say all, no matter which ideology, you have to engage to all of them. And finally, we're doing webinars, workshops, to reach the awareness and the necessity of having scientific advice mechanisms in the country.
Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Eduardo. It is quite impressive that it starts from one tweet in 2018 January, and you have already get involved into the parliament in February, right? It's just like 1 month.
Yeah.
That's quite impressive. And it is the engagement of public administration through a researcher. So we can see that how a researcher actually can initiate to be in the parliament to make the cooperation together with the policymakers, right? So, and also you started this training sessions between politicians and scientists, as we know that, scientists, policymakers, business owners, we all speak different languages. So it is important to make a bridge together with like map matching trainings. Like, congratulations with your achievements. So thank you very much once more. And I would like to invite to introduce the next speaker. Anna Berti Suman is a researcher, lawyer, and activist on civic environmental monitoring. She leads the Sensing for Justice project on the potential of civic evidence to demonstrate environmental harm on court and as an instrument to facilitate the mediation of environmental conflicts. So, Anna, you have a solid experience in international and interdisciplinary network and communication through global impactful international projects. So in the Marie Curie Individual Fellowship, the project Sensing for Justice that you founded was hosted at the European Commission's Joint Research Center. And later you still continue the project initiatives in Italy. So based on your expertise and experience directly related to the subject of session actually, particularly in terms of the interplay between civic monitoring, environmental justice, and law enforcement through the cooperation between citizen and public administration. So my question is, what specific innovative techniques or best practices have you seen or used in projects that could act as a roadmap for optimizing the result of MSCA initiatives involving public administrations? It's for a long question, so, so the stage is yours. Thank you.
Many thanks, and it's just great to intervene after the other speeches, just because I have instruments, for example, the fact that law enforcement authorities are part of public administration that works very closely, for example, with lawyers that the category represent, which is also really important to understand this ecosystem. I have 2 pointers because my first question is actually to you. And I would like to ask you to go to Mentimeter, because I have 2 questions. Basically, we really have a little time, so ideally you can rather quickly go into this Mentimeter space. And of course, let's say my first question was kind of answered by Lorenzo this morning. So, okay, let's go into the first question. Before this morning, not after his keynote, of course, did you know what was the European Commission Joint Research Center? Okay, that is good. Yes, more yes, although the no is also quite high. Okay, so my Marie Curie was hosted there, my Marie Curie Individual Fellowship, and I will tell you more about these, but basically many institutions, researchers that I met throughout my Marie Curie didn't know about the JRC and couldn't really localize it in the ecosystem of science, academia, policymaking, because in fact it's actually an interesting combination of these 3 dimensions. Second question, way more complex. Have you ever heard, before the kind introduction, about civic environmental monitoring? No, okay. I won't ask to the 3 that know to define it, or 4, because exactly I'm here for that. But it's interesting that the majority of you don't, because it's indeed an emerging field, which probably granted me the Marie Curie, but especially its legal application and its value for public authorities. It's quite unexplored. So let me jump into indeed my presentation. So at the time, around 2.5 years ago, I was observing court decisions, and I just had finished my PhD. And basically, my PhD was about the policy uptake of civic environmental monitoring. That is, how civic gathered data by ordinary people on environmental issues can be used to shape policies and decisions that affect policymaking. I give you an example. I was following the post-Fukushima spread of civic monitoring of radiation and how the civic data influenced the, let's say, official risk governance after the nuclear accident. And from a localized practice, it spread all over the world. But there was an element missing, which was about the judicial application of civic environmental monitoring. So when people use their senses or whatever sensing devices to collect data on environmental issues, they generally want a response. They're not just doing it for fun. Maybe a few are amateurs. For example, they love wandering in nature and taking pictures, but many of them are actually doing this because they want a response. And the response is also often from public administration. So whereas during my PhD I conducted in the Netherlands on the use in policymaking, for my Marie Curie project, I decided to go into the justice system to really look at how environmental law enforcement authorities, for example, courts, but also Environmental Protection Agency, for example, could leverage the power of environmental data gathered by ordinary people. A few months before the end of my PhD, I actually had the opportunity to be a visiting scientist at the institution, the JRC, that then hosted my Marie Curie. And this is a key point for me. Because to conduct your research in a science for policy institution like the JRC, which is huge and great, but of course it's not so easy to access it. First, because in my case, the research center was located in Ispra, in the northern Italy, in the middle of the mountains, a beautiful place, but try to go with public transportation to Ispra is a nightmare. So basically, you don't just walk in Madrid and knock at an office and talk to somebody about your potential proposal. So I had the opportunity throughout my PhD to be a visiting scientist at the JRC and got to know the unit that would then have hosted my proposal. And they really opened the door because they kind of got to know me slowly. So maybe a first suggestion to researchers, but also to potential public administration, to find informal, and maybe, let's say, this was not totally informal, but let's say opening and relaxed ways to find the first connection. Because also to write Marie Curie individual fellowship proposal takes time, engage a lot of offices, actors. So having the possibility to be there in this process and not having draining online meeting, it's really valuable. This image was about, indeed, the question on civic environmental monitoring. But I decided to put it there because you see that the possible applications are huge. So before, we heard about the industry, transportation, housing sector, risk response. So imagine the multitude of authorities that could be interested in this project. And in particular, in my project, I created links with DG Environment, DG Justice, DG Connect. So being at the JRC was for me a value because I couldn't just focus in a research stream, but really find this connection. And I'm still kind of in connection with all these realities exactly because the field of civic environmental monitoring has a multitude of applications. So the case that triggered this decision, this court ruling that inspired the project, is called the Formosa case, where fishers from Texas demonstrated plastic pollution by a petrochemical company in their bay. And this is a US judicial decision. So I pitched to the European Commission that something like this could well happen in Europe, and we needed to research into this. So, of course, in the EU, we have a very different judicial system, civil law, not common law, but really the EU-level actors were very interested exactly because they saw it as a potential, as an opportunity to also innovate the way environmental information is shared and used to leverage change at the EU-wide level. So the Sensing for Justice project started as an individual research project, but throughout the project, we could engage visiting scientists, experts, young trainees, for example, that with no budget, they just decided to subscribe on the project because they were very interested in it. So the good news is that even if the funding ended, a network of actors, for example, NGOs, civil society associations, and so on, are joining our forces because they see the potential of this idea. So at the moment, I moved to a new job, half as a lawyer, half as a researcher at the University of Florence. But in a way, I'm considering to make out of the Sensing for Justice project a kind of a legal startup, an NGO, which also demonstrates the potential to bring a research idea a bit beyond your comfort zone. And I could demonstrate cases that are, for example, in Europe, like this is in the south of Italy, a big European hub for oil extraction, where the sentinels, local, ordinary people, demonstrate arm and are asking justice from, for example, the European Court of Justice, CHED, the European Court of Human Rights. So you see how localized cases in Europe still have a EU-level relevance. So I always like to use images because it conveys the idea, and many of you didn't know about civic environmental monitoring. But let's say, moving to the conclusion, I also wanted to say that for us, an important element was to use, for example, illustration and art, going to field work, really to change the way local people were perceiving the research. And something that I would say it's very important is that throughout our project, we realized that the type of stakeholders that we could reach were really changing. And for example, being at the JRC, we could, of course, publish this kind of science for policy brief, but we also realized that to be really around, you need something that is more catchy. So, for example, we produced a graphic novel. I left a few copies in Spanish at the exit. We illustrated our policy brief. The illustration you saw were thanks to a cooperation with an artist, and that was really a big potential for us because it enabled also to reach audiences that otherwise would not have listened to us. And of course, recognition came, such as an award from the European Ombudsman, award, the EU Prize for Citizen Science, Young Scientist Award from the European Commission, Science Engagement Breakthrough of the Year. So in a way, like, the JRC was quite amazed by the amount of rewards that this project got. And I mean, even if the project is over, I really welcome fruitful interaction. I would be super happy to also, let's say, give some tips to future PIs that want to start a Marie Curie proposal with the JRC or vice versa, public administration. And maybe if I have just a second.
Sure, please.
I just wanted to say that throughout my Marie Curie project, I did a secondment at a legal bureau, basically. And the legal bureau is the place where I'm currently half employed. So also the secondment schemes are very, very effective to ensure to have you for free for a while and then having a follow-up that is enriching. But also the JRC found it as really a potential because they could enter in discussion with these lawyers, invite, for example, climate lawyers to talk about climate evidence in court. So sometimes there's really a win-win to be explored. And you have to fight a lot of barriers, but we talk about this later.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you. Thank you very much, Anna, for this inspiring talk, and it is quite interesting and also impressive because, as you can see, is that as a researcher also started an initiative and created impact together working with the public administration as a non-academic sector. So the first part of the presentations and the workshop is ended now, so I would like to say that from the beginning with the presentation of Anouk, we know now who is MSCA, And then together with the Jesus presentation, we know what is public administration and non-academic factors. And we have also seen that what is GRC, that we already have the information from our panelists. Thank you very much for them. And also we have seen that there were those initiatives like Science in Parliament, so it is possible to reach the policymakers and engage them. And this, we have seen these initiatives that it can create an impact. So researchers like Eduardo and Anna created that is possible to make a link between non-academic sectors and together with researchers. So I would like to turn my panelists and I would like to ask another question. So if we say that the data shows that public administration do not have a high impact in MSCA actions, but we know that the relevance of collaboration between policymaking and institutions and researchers is highly relevant, producing impact at every different levels. So I would like to ask, please share your views on benefits you think the participation or the value of the involvement of non-academic sectors, specifically speaking, public administration, in the MSCA actions. So I would like to get your opinions, Jesus. What do you think about non-academic sectors' participation and benefits and value?
The benefits are clear. I will inform you, in the framework of the MSCA Net project, is the National Counterpoint project. We already, a couple of weeks, we published guidelines for approaching the non-academic sector. In this document, we explain the benefits to including the different actors in the non-academic sector. And I have here a couple of benefits if you include public administration in your projects. For example, they can offer you their policy expertise. Also, they can support you in the regulatory, so your project could be aligned with the rules and the regulatory in specific fields, from environment, security, first aid emergencies, any housing, urban planning, so they can provide you the guidelines and the expertise to help you that your project is aligned with the needs of the citizens. Also, they can provide you data, resources, facilities. They can provide you also privacy and security procedures. You know, public administration is very expert in protect data. Sometimes they have some breaks on security, but you know, these kind of entities offer these kind of opportunities to Marie Curie projects. And the last benefit I think is really important is long-term sustainability. Public administration can help you to continue your project after the Marie Curie funding is finished. So sustainability, use public administration to go beyond the funding from the Marie Curie. And also, the public administration can be benefited from Marie Curie projects in many aspects. But one is networking, visibility, and reputation. So if we involve public administration can show us a modern public administration with collaboration with cutting-edge researchers. So I think it's a win-win situation. And also, we can talk about companies. Companies, they can provide employability for researchers, but Marie Curie can provide a really important benefits to companies. So I can give you some benefits, for example, talent attraction. Companies, they can benefit from the best researchers, predoctoral researchers, postdoctoral researchers, and any other researchers, for example, during staff exchange projects, and they can receive for a short period of time a really good researcher that help these companies to open a new research line or a new service or product. So there is, my message is there is always a win-win situation between Marie Curie projects and the non-academic sector. And in this case, public administration can offer a lot to the Marie Curie projects.
Oh, thank you. Yes, you emphasize especially that the MSCA can create actually the bridge between these engagements, right? And also you noted that it's also helped the career development of researchers at the public administration. So I would like to ask this question to Anna as well. As a researcher, and you were also PI as in your project, so what is your thoughts about this, the career development of benefits of research?
Yeah, so it's interesting because like connecting to the idea of like growing in a public administration, like coming from Italy, I would see it a bit as a struggle, let's say. I would see it more, for example, within a European Commission entity, because one maybe downside of engaging with Marie Curie actions, especially at the level of, for example, individual fellowship, is indeed that the public administration should have an organization supporting it. So I think the benefit for policymakers exposed to Marie Curie Fellow is that, as you saw from my project, it can be something fresh from outside that they didn't think to. And I think this can open potential for like really being more effective in the policy making, because you're really spot on what is the pressing breakthrough in science for policy, for example. And something that I feel it's very specific to the JRC, but definitely the JRC scientific process is definitely based on request, so what DGs ask. And Marie Curie gives the advantage to bring ahead for like front-running projects that are not requested. And so they can also open, for example, new DG interests, so new DGs that were not following a work of a specific unit jump on it. And I would say in terms of like career, so if I would return the question more at the level of like an individual, I think the possibility to craft your postdoctoral projects, making it the idea that represents you in society, in the scientific arena, is unique. Because looking at, for example, university careers that are generally still very sectorial in the sense of discipline, being able to explore so many different areas with so many different organizations in a postdoctoral time, I think it's unique, really. So,
yeah, thank you. We have seen that very successful participation, your project sensing in the public administration, but if you can see that MSCA actually facilitated to this engagement through the project, right, the European project. So thank you, and I want to ask Eduardo, as a engagement with the policymakers, so how would you comment this benefits of participation of public administration?
Yeah, actually, Anna has explained very, very perfectly what is my feeling. When you get to know politicians, you understand that we have something in common, that is our spirit to service society. We want to solve problems that the society has. And to solve these problems, we need information, because decisions that are well informed have better chances to be success. So, I mean, if we get to understand what are their needs, we can probably focus our research on get the information that the policymakers need to design and execute a public policy that is able to kind of sort out the problem. And I cannot see any of the problems, like if we think about the ODS, that will not be benefit of the research and scientific knowledge. Mm-hmm. Everything. So I think it's super important to be in touch, to understand their needs. Also, we have to understand that the decision process is not only based on science and scientific knowledge. You know, they have to make decisions based on economics, ideology, and other factors. And they need to understand how science works. Because science is also working with uncertainty, which is something that politicians doesn't take pretty much well. So they need to understand that uncertainty is exactly what science is. So what we believe today it could be an answer, or it could be a solution, or it could be an information that we believe is true. Probably tomorrow we have a new technology that helps us to understand that this solution wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And we have to change.
Yes,
So,
that's true.
yeah, we need to, so the benefit is massive.
This is great,
because
yeah.
at the end we will reach, to sort out the problem.
Right.
And this is, yeah, so sorry, just to finish, we want our research, me as a researcher, I want my research to have an impact in the society.
Right.
And this is the way.
So then it's good to know that we have something common with politicians, which is problem solving, right?
We have more things in common.
Yeah, actually. And you were able to also create this training together with training with policymakers and also the researchers, right? So
sorry again?
the training with the politicians and researchers that you mentioned in your Science and Parlamento.
Yeah, we had to also receive this training, thanks to the GRC
Must
that is delivering these amazing courses. So we first receive the training and then we do it.
Yeah, okay.
That is very useful, yeah.
Great. So I would like to hear, Anouk, like MSCA and especially for the EU's sustainable development goals, like how could you comment the same question?
I mean, I can only support what's been said by Jesus, Anna, and Eduardo. And I mean, rather than the SDGs, what I wanted to say is that is exactly why everything that's been said by the other panelists is exactly why we've always put this kind of emphasis on mobility in MSCA. And yes, in our communication in the past, and again, this was said in the morning, we've tended to focus more on industry and innovation, but the same benefits apply to mobility with public administration and policy making. And mobility is not just for mobility's sake. We're not a mobility program, but it's there to achieve our dual objectives that are to deliver, to support excellent research. And here we were talking about, how that collaboration with public administration support the co-design so that, we have hypotheses, we have research questions that are on point, the data access that we need to carry out the research and spot-on research, and then the dissemination and exploitation of those results into impactful, research. And also the second objective, which is the training objective of researchers. And for us, it's beyond the scope of, beyond the duration of the program. With MSCA, we aim to train researchers, to equip them for careers afterwards, and more those careers are going to be either in another sector beyond academia, or creating those bridges, those interfaces between academia and public administrations, and those are new professions and we need those kind of training and those kind of experiences with public administrations involved in research programs like they can be in MSCA to achieve these objectives. And that then, whatever the SDG, obviously this all contributes to having the profiles that we need to answer those questions and to have the research that we need to address those issues as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you also mentioned about this participation of the researchers, especially now we are talking about the public administration participation, researchers, and together MSCA is facilitate, and MSCA is ready to do it now on. So, and we are going on, and I would like to ask actually speakers, audience online and here in present. So I would like to have only 2 questions now. So it would be great if you have questions for speakers. You have heard about the public administration participation, MSCA actions. So if you have any questions now. Short questions. Yeah, here, please. Yeah. There. I have seen first.
Yeah, thank you all for giving this overview. This morning, there was a big point about Marie Curie being bottom-up, right? So it's scientists giving their own ideas for their ITNs, things they want to work on. But for me as a scientist, and I think for a lot of other scientists, we maybe lack the imagination how we might even be related to policy. So there are some fields where it's obvious, let's say climate, let's say security, but then maybe things in health or material science, where maybe you as a scientist can't see how you could contribute to policy. How can you imagine this connection where there might be a nudge or suggestions to scientists how they could engage with policy?
If you have any general question to
yeah, it's
so
open.
would like to answer this question specifically, a very short answer.
Yeah.
Who would
Well,
like to go?
I don't mind to answer that because it's something that
Yeah.
I ask myself every day. If you want to.
Well, I think it's a great question, and I think as scientists may lack imagination on policy impacts, also policymakers may lack imagination on scientific dimensions of their policy. As an invitation, I think whoever works or visit the JRC, not for promoting particularly the JRC, but every science section as a direct policy impact, exactly because the type of science at the JRC is directed to influence EU policy. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a brilliant example as how every scientist can contribute to policy making. I think in more local, maybe smaller scale or academic academic arena, one kind of initiative we had in the Netherlands, which I think it was really nice, was about having policymakers come to academia, then activists come to academia, and lawyers coming to academia, for example. And when policymakers came to to attend lectures or exchange, I think it was really, they were really eager to observe how students ask questions that were relevant for policymaking and vice versa. So I think maybe academic homes, academic institutions could more open up to this kind of serendipitous, informal, so similar to the parliament approach, but move to universities.
Yeah,
and Edward, short.
If I can add something short, all right. So sometimes it's not thinking about how your research can help policymakers. It's to understand what policymakers need. So how your knowledge, your expertise, your skills can help to get the knowledge that they need, right? That takes a bit of time to understand, and for me it was a process. And I can see the process in the people participating in the parent schemes, because they begin the program thinking that my research is very important and will help the politician. But at the end, the politician realizes that the daily basis, they need something else. Either you or your colleague will help them, but you will be the contact point. And we come back to what we have been talking this morning. We need professionals. We need specific people to work in the interface between science and policy. Because we can have some thoughts and try to do this research, focus on what they need. But if we have professionals, offices, staff that are able to speak with experts, to understand the science and distillate all this knowledge and translate the knowledge to the policymakers and the other way around, the same way the communication office works in the university, we are there. We need mechanisms.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So I would like to just ask one short question from the audience, here. Yeah.
Thank you very much to the panel. One thing I picked from Lorenzo's talk this morning and tying it together with what you have all said is the policy makers need to ask the right question, because from the cartoon he showed where someone said, "Where am I?" I think the scientist may answer better if that person said, "Where is this place?" or "What location is this?" I think we put too much weight on the scientists sometimes, as opposed to the policymakers. I'm not throwing punches or blames, but I think sometimes the questions that are coming from the policymakers need to be very, very clear, very, very exact, and maybe someone needs to tell them this as well. Thank you very much.
There's a comment, right? Thank you.
I totally agree. Yeah. And we need to create spaces of dialogue between researchers and public administration, policymakers. Even I'm thinking the evolution of FP7, Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe. There are new requirements for projects. Now we are very focused on impact. we are talking about impact on society, impact on technology, on the science, economic impact, but maybe in the future the Commission could include that any Marie Curie project should have an impact on policy, because policy making is in any field, and there is no topics on policy making. It's bottom-up approach. Anything in society is ruled by laws, by policies. So maybe we need to think about that it's a requirement to involve public administration policy making in any Marie Curie project.
Yeah, I also want to make a short comment. I think it goes both sides, right? I mean, and when the policymaker needs an advice, so they can get in touch with researchers. And when researchers have an idea that they would believe that would contribute to the decision making in the policy level, so they can do it. For example, Eduardo has initiated this Science in Parliament with the initiative, but his own initiatives with colleagues, and Anna used the MSCA as a tool to get involved into environmental challenges with her project. So I would like to go back to Anna, and I want to ask one more question. How do you see public administration, MSCA as an MSCA fellow, and academic researchers working together to address environmental challenges?
Thanks. It's a huge question, so
Just a short
addressing it
answer,
like
yes.
shortly. I think it all starts really on embracing uncertainty, and that was mentioned. I think for environmental challenges, there are two dimensions that should really be considered for policymakers, academics, researchers to be able to work together, is to acknowledge the uncertainty and also the dimension of time. And I think when you mentioned the question from policymakers that have to be very precise, I think sometimes the mismatch is also about the time needed to get the answer that serves policymakers and the time researchers would want to spend on inquiring for giving this advice. I think environmental challenges give a great opportunity exactly for the intersectionality of environmental issues. There is social justice, health, really, I don't know, discussion on chemicals. So they're great test beds, but I think more and more we realize that many other challenges, like environmental ones, need intersectionality. Think to, for example, the LGBTQ+ presentation we heard earlier. So really entangle economics and stuff. My point would really be about creating agile approaches to work together. And if, for example, hosting a Marie Curie as partner is not an option, then the secondment or visiting scientist is the most agile opportunity that a public administration would have to just focus on something concrete. Yeah. And I have to say, for example, in my case, the City Council of Milan was extremely proactive on getting mediation, environmental mediation courses from basically my project to their officials, because they saw an immediate benefit. So pointing to the benefit, creating something agile, like a day of training for public officials on conflict mediation techniques, it's something that is kind of low-hanging fruit, but is a start. So I think finding agile, low-hanging, also low resources approaches to start working and then plan something more could be an approach.
Right, so that means that there are many opportunities and options to go with this way, right? So I would like to go back to Jesus. Please, what are the current challenges and short-term recommendations to overcome all those?
There are many challenges and there are many barriers we need to break. I think the first one is the disconnection between MSCA projects that are focused on research and sometimes on innovation, and public administration that are focused on policy making. So I think we need spaces to dialogue between the academia and the public administration in order to align their needs. Also, public administration is composed by civil servants. What happened with civil servants? They consider this kind of projects an extra work, many bureaucratic language barriers. So we need to create awareness to these civil servants. I suffer in this. I'm working at the regional government, and my colleagues, civil servants, when they think about to join a EU project, okay, maybe Jesus, you join and you work in the project, and I will advise you. But this is something we need to work, create awareness show the benefits. Actions, success stories, inspirational stories. When a city council saw that the Toledo City Council is in a project and they are getting benefit from a project, why the city of Cuenca, we are not in this kind of project. So I think we need to show the benefits of participating in MSCA projects.
Maybe science communication would help, right? To
Of course.
create an impact, to track
And break the
attention of the
yes.
policymakers to get the right.
Yes, and we need to break the mentality of EU project, a Marie Curie project is an extra task for civil servants and for public workers. So they need to understand the benefits and the reputation that they will get participating in these kind of projects.
Right, thank you. So I would like to go back to Anouk, and I would like to hear from you that do incentives for researchers and public administration for long-term collaboration impact participation?
It's an interesting question. I mean, it's. I think we heard this morning an example of clearly where well, you know, incentives would help to increase in participation. With I'm thinking of it when Isaskun mentioned the example of the postdoc in microbiologist who wanted to carry out a project with their office, and it wasn't, you know, if the topic at the time of research in their office was not related to her research, well, actually it was lost time or lost opportunity for her to spend time on publications on things related to her research, and that's a clearly, you know, that's a clear barrier for researchers to get involved. And now we have, again mentioned in the same session, we have this incentive that we're trying to introduce through the European Charter for Researchers by including in the reform of research assessment contribution to policy making as one output that should be recognized and rewarded in research assessments. And that's that's important for notably for those who want to for those who want to carry out their career in academia. And I think there the role of so to answer shortly your question, I think yes, obviously we cannot quite quantify or fully understand how it affects, but it has an effect. But the reverse is also that actually MSCA can drive those changes as well, actually through making the European Charter of Researcher a requirement for participating organizations. It means they need to apply those principles, and it means it increases it supports the uptake of these types of new practices in research assessment. So there's this dual kind of connection with MSCA in that obviously the context and the barriers and incentives that researchers are facing and organizations as well to affect the participation, but also by ourselves, you know, promoting the participation in the program, we can contribute to changing this mindset and the uptake of those new incentives.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are going to end our meeting in 1 minute. Thank you very much for participants. I would like to hear one sentence from each panelist as a summary. So I would like to go with Anna from there. Just
one sentence or word?
one sentence.
One sentence.
One sentence, yes.
Yeah, I think if you're a scientist, be inspirational for policymakers and vice versa. Take up challenges, but put your passion in it, because I think through passion you can really transform bureaucratic barriers. And also I think if you will be passionate as a public official or as a scientist, you will be able to create this perfect merge for tackling global challenges. So
Eduardo.
One sentence, all right.
Just
So,
we have 50 seconds. Yeah.
We need more spaces for meeting points.
Meeting points.
To meet
Yes.
between scientists and policymakers.
Perfect.
Make public administration your new best friend.
Yeah, and I think in the MSCA program we can do, notably in our own communication, trying to promote the opportunities not for public administration as non-academic sector within MSCA programs, we can do much more.
I want to extend our deepest gratitude for our panelists and for our audience. Thank you very much for being here with us. And I would like to mention that there will be presentations of conclusions and final discussions. Please do not miss that one. And thank you very much for participation. I would like to thank Christina and Javier and all the people who are behind of this organization, MSCA, FECYT, Presidencia of Unión, for organizing this event, bringing us together. Thank you very much for being here. Have a good evening.